Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pixelated Perfect podcast. I am super excited today. I have a guest, Andrea. She is a UX designer right now at a bank, and she also runs her own podcast called UX Friends Podcast. So I'm super excited to dive deeper into her career. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you. Behind the scenes, I told you this is my first time in an interview in English. So be nice with me.
Well, we do have a lot of Spanish speakers that listen to the podcast, so feel free to every once in a while throw in something in Spanish. Maybe it'll make more sense to our listeners.
I
So
will try to be my best.
I'm super excited. I'm excited that I get to be your first podcast in English. Okay, so let's dive in. So kind of the question I start off with is, when did design come into your life?
Well, this is a difficult but easy questions. My career in design began in a very young age when I studied as a technical college to graduate in medium technician in graphic technology. It was like when I have 15 years. And then I studied a degree in graphic design at the university in Venezuela, my country. And there is a one class with some teacher who marked me for life. And I made me fall in love with web design at that time. Spoiler alert, now is my co-host and partner in UX from podcast. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
My teacher now is my co-host.
Wow, so you really built a strong relationship with her.
And I think it's like kind of my best friend / father, something like that. It's awesome. You need to know it. Well,
so what was the class that she was teaching that kind of got you hooked in design?
It was web design. In that time, nobody say UX design, UI design, just calling web design the class.
Yes. Well, so what was it about that class and your teacher / best friend now that got you so hooked?
When you are in college, you saw very little classes, and always one class is the best for you because all the people making like books and flyers and things like print. And when I know, can I lead with web design, I say, this is the future. That is the right path for me. Web design. And when I started, I created web page in Photoshop. It was like now all using Figma, XD, or that tools. And that time I used Photoshop.
I started out in Photoshop too, and I'm so thankful that there's so many better tools out there today because it was hard to design in Photoshop. It took a long
it's too
time.
Long when you export the icons, all the stuff. When you make the handoff for developer, it's so different now. But let's move on to my story. Well,
but yes, I get it. Whoever had to deal with Photoshop, I'm sorry. And whoever never had to deal with it, you're so lucky. We'll leave it at that.
Or maybe you are too young.
Yes, right. You never had to deal with it. So good for you.
I designed a website for a symphony in my country in Estado Zulia. It's a symphony, a classic symphony, and I made the first website for them. Well,
very cool.
It was nice. I learning too much about the instrument, the music, and it was pretty good. But during the course of working in several important design agencies in my time, in my country, and I also, for a while, I organized events and concerts. It was a crazy moment in my life because I working like web designer graphic designer. And at the night, I organized concerts. It was pretty much excited.
Yes, it sounds like there was no time to sleep. You were just busy working.
Sometimes, yes, it was like that, but it was exciting, and I learned so much in PR, like in terms to social network, and I think that helped me today because in the past I organized events, and now I do it for myself, for my podcast.
Right. So you already had some of that skill sets. You knew how social media worked. You knew how to get your podcast out there.
I always working in that stuff for other people, and now it's for me.
Yay, that's exciting. Doesn't that feel so good when it's like it's for you? It's so much more meaningful in a different way. There's just more attachments. Okay, so you were a web designer, and
that was
by day.
That was when I lived in Venezuela. But before I migrate, I already have a good web design portfolio, and that's helped me to find my first job as a UX designer here in Chile in 2016. That was my first title, UX designer.
And what was that company? Where did you get started there?
My first job here, it was short because I changed the work. I changed a lot of work. It was in a better company. It's the network. It's an internet company here in Chile. It's very important, but I don't like the way to work there because when you start a job, how hour is your hour to stay, and in that job you never knew when you can leave. it was that kind of work. It's stressed for you, and I changed the work because spoiler alert, my friend, the podcast, has a agency, a little agency, UX in Chile, and they offer me a job in 1 month. And I say, okay, yes, let's do it. But
that's great.
It was 1 year working there. I learned so much about UI, how function the country, because when you migrate, you need to understand things like how to speak with your client. It's not the same way to speak to Venezuelan people that Chilean persons, or the way functions several stuff taking a bus, taking subway. And it was a moment to, okay, I need to understand several things to move on. And when I understand whole stuff, 1 year later, I changed my work to Samsonite. You know the brand of the luggage, Samsonite?
Yes, Samsonite, yeah.
I work in almost 4 years there. At the beginning, I start web designer, e-commerce designer. I was to escalate, and then I'm made in charge to all the web page here in Latin America. Samsonite, Tumi, Liphole in Mexico, Extreme, Secret, the whole brands for Samsonite in Latin America. It was very exciting. I learned so much, but I need to focus more in UX because in e-commerce, it's more like UI and sales goals, and I needed to understand more UX. And that's when 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, I start creating content about e-commerce, UX, and UI in Spanish because I saw very little information in our language, in Spanish. And with the lockdown, I finally had time, all the people with the lockdown finally have time.
That's great. Okay, I have some questions because this is all super interesting. So just to go back a little bit, and then I definitely want to ask about this content. So when my question to you, and this is kind of like maybe you have advice for other people in similar positions, especially like designers. So changing countries, cultures is culture shock. It's difficult. And like
It's a shock.
I think that's really interesting in some of those challenges that you faced, kind of learning about culture and how to communicate differently, especially in a design way. Do you have any advice for people that are moving around, changing cultures, and working in a design field in a different country?
Yeah, okay. First, trying to get out with people, the country, not just your friends, just your friend that your country. Just try to get dates with people, local people,
Yeah.
knowing the culture, uh, go outside Sundays, visit the museum. I always visit museum and that time. Museums, uh, reading about the history, and try the food, trying different food, not just your food.
Right.
Because when you understand how they eat, how they rest, uh, what kind of music they like, you can like under your skin trying to absorb all the culture of the country. It's different. Chile is so different in Venezuela in too many ways, like the food, like music, the history, the politic history is very different.
Right, right. I
And
think
you need
that's
to
great
understand
advice.
that for respect, because when you move on and you have your own thought about politics and behavior, you need to understand and respect that story.
Yes. Yeah, I think the respect is huge. That's really great advice. Okay, my next question is about taking a job at Samsonite, and you worked there for 4 years and kind of worked your way up. You were in charge of all of like LATAM web pages. That's
Yeah,
really exciting. So what was that?
it was tired.
Yes. And that also is kind of like that cultural difference. So how were you able to make sure that you were communicating in the right way to these different LATAM?
It was a shock for me, but it was the first time I always had meetings with people in other countries, because I work here in Chile, but I have meetings with people in Peru, Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, and all the country. The speak is different. When you design a website like Samsonite, you need to know, like in Mexico, the backpacks is mochilas. But if you go to Colombia, backpack is morral. And you need to understand that for design correct architecture in your website. Running the campaigns, how is the catalog? It was excited, it was tired, but it was so grateful to understand different cultures, to make the best decision in your website and making the best experience, the best experience for your users in that time.
Right. So do you feel like you kind of did user testing in a way by talking? You were like, you were talking to so many different people from all these different countries. That was
Yeah,
probably a way to understand.
and when I need to prove like usability tests, I need to prove it with different countries, with people Mexico, with people Colombia, Peru. It's not just, oh, it's function here in Chile, maybe it's function in Mexico. No,
Right.
it not was like that. It's
Right. Right.
because Mexico is a big country and the cultural and e-commerce is different. They have more money to spend like people in Peru. It's not the same offer for that people.
Right. So it wasn't just like the design or the words, it was also like how you communicated
How
the
they
whole
communicated.
message.
And when in that time I need to adapt the design, the Europe design, the Samsung Europe design in my web page. And I say, okay, that's function for you, for Europe. But here the bottom is not in the left, right. or in the left, in the right, or that kind of technology like VR in that time, it's not so cheaper here in Chile to implement it. And
Interesting.
you need to make decisions. Okay, I can do that. No, I can do that. And trying to the brand need to see like in other country like to see the same, but not have the same budget that in Europe.
Right, right. Oh my gosh, that's fascinating. That's really interesting. I feel like that skill set, I'm sure, is going. We'll get to that part, how that's kind of like
Yeah, but
helped
now
you.
I work in bank in other different area. 2 years ago,
Yes,
I
which is
work in bank.
exciting. Okay, so before we move forward, I want to hear more about this content that you started creating. And I love that you were like, you felt like there wasn't enough content about UI UX design in Spanish.
Okay, when I finally had the time in the lockdown, I start to create content about UX, UI, and e-commerce, but it was also afraid for losing my job because I selling luggage and nobody it was trouble. But
Right.
when I was in e-commerce, just can't sell it in e-commerce because in Chile all the store locked down, but the only store you can sell it was my store, e-commerce, and that's why I conserve my job. And
Yes.
when I have too many stores in all the countries, I have job. But at the beginning of the pandemic, I was afraid of losing my job. That's not happened. Thanks God. And for being an immigrant, because it's difficult. I am an
Right.
immigrant and goodbye.
Right.
and
Definitely.
and I saw as a way to make myself know and attract clients just in case, like a freelance. But after 2 months, I realized that what I really like was helping other people who were just starting in UX experience, not selling web page. And that's why I change the kind of content and create my podcast. This is how US Friend Podcast began. As a space to share experience, connect with others experts in different areas of design, and with the purpose of promotion, helping and teaching people who want to venture into the world of technology from the perspective of UX. That's mostly. And this
I
changed
love
my
it.
life. This changed my life. After my regular 9 to 6 job, my second job begins. And now I give mentorship. I was in the talk of list of ADP list like mentor this year, yesterday. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh, congrats. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was shocking. It was, oh my God, really? Me?
Yes. Oh, of course. I can
And
totally see that. So
yeah,
how long have you been mentoring on ADP list?
it was too short, just 2 months. And it was winning like most globally mentor. And I said, what? Really? Maybe it's for my work in other areas, not just ADP list, maybe for that.
Oh my
I
gosh,
make
that's so
classes,
exciting.
talks, and conference, maybe for that. And that's become, I receive comments, I know, for mentoring and comments like, I found a job thanks to your advice. I changed my life thanks to your podcast. And that is what's filled me the most satisfaction. Now, really, I can imagine my life without doing what I do. My mantra, and I say always the mantra, dreams don't come true, they work. Like you need to work for your dreams, not just, I want to change my job. No, you need to working for that. It's not my
Like,
phrase. It's
yeah.
not my phrase. It's me astral phrase. is a mantra.
But it's a beautiful mantra, and I love that mantra. I think that's a great way to look at it. I think you have to put that work in, and that's when magic happens. So I love that. So you started this podcast and it's changed your life. So what kind of people are you talking to on your podcast? What does that structure look like?
All the people, since UX designer, UI designer, marketing people. The last one was Emmy winner, illustrated Emmy winner.
Wow.
That username is Superama Amaranta, and other people like reference in the UX world or marketing people, like all the kind of people like psychology, fashion stylist, different people who have the perspective to helping you in your career. Because the stylist was so fun because she say me how I need to dress for interview, and all the people say, oh no, if I wear in black, I'm good. But no, for everybody is the right color. Your skin, your tone, your hair, all that function when you have an interview. And that's why I interview different kind of background people. For all the people, me or all the people have something interesting to say, like a great balance. I don't know. When in the pandemic, we interview psychology to saying how to manage your time in your house to work with life balance, work balance, and that kind of stuff. Not only just talking about UX writing, UX, like research, different topics.
Wow,
it's a lot of work because you need to make the interview, you need to make the correct audio or put in social network for all everybody listen the podcast. We have sponsors now for that.
Wow, that's
amazing. We had a sponsor. We had a Nucleus School in Barcelona and Coder House in Argentina.
That's really, really exciting. I'm excited for you. And so how can people find your podcast? I'm assuming it's everywhere that you can listen to podcasts.
It's easily. You only put in Google UX Friend Podcast and you say in Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breakers, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, and on Instagram, the handle is the same. UX Friend slash podcast. It's the same.
I love it.
It's too easy.
Okay. So all of the Spanish speakers out there, definitely go and check it out. And maybe anyone that doesn't speak Spanish but wants to learn Spanish and is passionate about UX can take a listen.
Yeah, we always interview people different countries, Mexico, Colombia, USA. The fashion stylist was from USA. And from Europe, like Spain, Portugal, different backgrounds. That's exciting.
Yes, I love that. Yes, I mean, that's amazing. I think that your podcast, I wish that I could listen. I need to learn Spanish. That'll motivate me to learn
This
Spanish.
Is my brand, the smiley face.
Yay. That's so cute. I love it. Okay, so kind of picking up, you kind of started this podcast in the pandemic. You also had your full-time job. So what happened next?
What happened next? Well, I am in a Blu-ray, like a difficult moment now because this is the end of the year and my friends, like it is my family here, they move on to USA, and that's I say you it's difficult moment to me. It's Christmas and my friends just move on, and now I'm separated. I broke up with my boyfriend, and I'm making for the next year my own course about usability tests with Edison. Is a platform in Argentina, and I make my own course, and I'm moving on because I bought a house, an apartment, and I hope to take my nationality here in Chile for travel like Franco. You know Franco. I want to travel like him, but not
Yes.
so many times. But I want to travel for the world like uh, nomada, digital
Yeah.
nomada.
Yes.
I want to travel. Uh,
That's
it's the
amazing.
next step. And I want to make more events in person, not just online. Event like invite other people, other podcasts, like sharing comments, not just putting online, just more
Yeah.
events with different like schools, university. We want to do that in the future, and
That's amazing.
I will to do that.
That's exciting. I feel like now we all can get back together and do events in person. And I love that mission for you. And it sounds like 2023 is going to be like a fresh start for you. You have all of these things you want to do and
And I
accomplish.
need to
And
visit my friends. And
yes.
yeah, in Europe, in Spain, in USA. That's why
So
I
yeah,
need to travel.
you gotta get ready to start traveling. That's exciting. That's the
And
next step.
and I will travel in February. I will go to Argentina and maybe visit some friends there. And
I
then
love that.
maybe organize some events. I don't know.
I love that. I love that. So, yes, we have quite a few designers in Argentina and Buenos Aires. So we should definitely talk about putting on some kind of event, or they can hop on to your event because I know they would love to be a part of that as designers themselves.
I need to
Um,
know all the people I all the friends I make in next social networks.
yes, I love that. I love that. So one thing we didn't touch on, which I wanted to bring up, is the switch from these jobs you had in e-commerce and now you're in banking. So I wanted to make sure we touched on that because I want to know how that kind of came about.
Working in a bank is so different than working in e-commerce. It's different work, and more because I work for major bank like enterprise bank. It's no personal bank. All the people using the app, no. My my area is with companies that use the platform to pay their salaries, to pay the employees, and it's different to reach out that kind of user. Like making an interview, it's so long because it's high level profile. uh, you need to make it like you need to make okay. If we have making an interview, I need to talk with your like let me say the word, um you're executing. You have a personal who honor your account, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
people I need to um speak first, like no no speaking with the client first with that people, and that people
Right.
making the bridge with the client. And it's difficult, it's bureaucratic, and it's so heavy, but it's the work. Not, right now we have, or we trying to standardize sorted like how to make the handoff with the developer people, how to make the interview, how to tag the metrics. It's a difficult, and but it's like you don't have too many space to innovate. You need to try and to do the best, but you can innovate so much like you can innovate in e-commerce.
Right. But I feel like there's probably a lot of like interesting UX challenges to solve.
Yeah, because you have all the stuff like you you need to help your user and say to business, hey, we need to improve the accessibility. hey, we need to hear the user, because in bank they never never hear the user, just checking numbers.
Right.
And that is the difference. And you need to be strong to fight with that. You need to be strong.
I'm sure. So do you feel like a lot of what you do is like kind of defending or trying to suggest best practices?
Best practices, and all the time you have I had so many meetings, and I say, okay, when I work, I need to work. I can living in a meeting all the time. And that's the thing you need to manage, like, okay, what kind of time or how many hours I put it in that project, and I need to talk with that client, or I need to talk with that project management to helping me. It's too much about negotiate, how can I say, negociación, or management, your time, manage with the people. It's bureaucratic.
Right. Yeah, I feel like a lot of, I'm sure you spend a lot of time probably mentoring, is a lot of jobs in UI UX are some of those soft skills, like how to communicate and
how
to voice your opinions.
How you're encouraged and manage all the stuff, and how to not feeling like burnout. That is a big problem when you always working remotely in areas or in business like bank. You feel overwhelmed and you feel burnout, and always, or maybe in this time when it's the end of the year, you feel it like, oh, I need a rest. And here in Latin America, especially in a bank, we don't have vacations like, oh, all vacations, holiday season. No, we don't have. And you feel it tired.
Yes. Well, I hope you are still taking a couple days to relax.
Just the normal and regular days, like 25, like Christmas Day, just Christmas Day, and New Year's Eve,
and then back to the grind
and back to the work.
I hear you. It's hard to find that balance, and I think that's great that you're kind of like talking about that in mentorship too, because I think it's really important to recognize.
Or maybe it's because I work too much, because I work in a bank and I work creating content, and then I do mentoring. Maybe it's for that, but I recommend my advice for the people. It's trying to do what can really want to do, like taking a nap or exercise, maybe cooking or walk with your dog. You need to have time for yourself. All the stuff, it's not the work. You are not just a working person. You need to balance, and it's my goal for the future. I need to get out more, because here in Chile is summer and we need to I gonna say, aprovechar. Take a holiday or take a spring here, because you need to balance your life. The work is not just in the life.
Yes. I love that. I think it kind of to summarize our conversations and like where we've gone is, I think we talked a lot about how if you want something, you have to work for it, right? And like
you can do hard. Everything, but not at the same time. That is important.
Yes, exactly.
You can do
so fight
everything,
for your dreams,
but not at the same time. You need to put in goals. Actually, that is the right moment to put in goals, to write your goals for the next year. How is your goal for the next year? Like, how is your goal?
I need to be thinking of my goal for 2023. I don't know what my goal is. Yeah,
that is
this is the perfect
time
to
talk about your goals.
Yes.
You can write it, you can burning like this is my 3 goals and I'm burning, or you can make your Notion and putting goals and KPRs and NPS to know if you reaching out at the end of the next year.
That's great advice. So everyone listening, as the end of the year approaches, this is the perfect time to be thinking about what you want to accomplish next year. Make them actionable. Definitely put them in somewhere, whether it's Notion or
trying to apply UX to your life.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. I love that. Yes. So that should be everyone's to do when they finish listening to this podcast. Well, awesome. Andrea, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was really great to kind of hear your story, where you came from, like immigrating, and all of these amazing side hustles you've done and turned into a career and a thriving career and something you're really passionate about. So I appreciate you sharing all that with me.
Thank you. It was a challenge for me
taking
this interview in English. No, it was a challenge. And I put in a story of saying like, I will try no fuck out the interview with my English.
You nailed it. It was perfect. I can't wait until we get to share it with the world and everyone gets to hear your first podcast in English.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andrea. We'll chat soon.
Bye-bye.